You're listening to DecayMag, Horror Entertainment News Podcast. Online source for news, interviews, and trending topics.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. My name is Ken R2's founder for DecayMag. You're listening to DecayMag Horror Entertainment News Podcast, Season 9, Episode 13. Stacy, who is usually our co-host, is off today, and in her place we have a co-host, returning guest co-host, Kyle. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I'm back. Kyle is my name, as Ken just told you. I'm a writer for DecayMag as well as the digital magazine, and also a writer for LongLiveTheVoid.com, which you can be found through LongLiveTheVoid.com or BTVcast, basically on any social media outlet.
Cool, thanks. And we have a slate of trending topics to discuss: movie news, television streaming, trailer first impressions, but we have two exclusive interviews. The first, actress Natalie Shaheen. She is an actress. She stars in the upcoming film Godzilla, King of Monsters. Tune in for that conversational interview. Of course, no information was released on King Kong versus Godzilla, which, Kyle, I know everybody's anticipating that film.
I definitely am as well. It's actually one of my talking points later on today when we cover the trailer. So definitely something I'm interested in, both the interview as well as the film and the upcoming King Kong versus Godzilla film. Right.
And of course, no information was dropped for Godzilla, King of Monsters. Hush hush. It was more of Natalie Shaheen's progress as an actress, the training she did for the movie Godzilla, and that's it. No other information. Also, our second interview is with Bob Magill and Tina Storer. They are paranormal investigators, and they have joined forces and have a TV show which just aired this week titled Ghost Bait, and you could catch that on the Travel Channel. A very interesting conversation about the paranormal, and we touched up on the TV show Ghost Bait. Kyle, have you seen not the trailer, the segments presented on TV for this new upcoming show?
I don't have cable, so I unfortunately was not able to see it. I know that you spoken about it early on, or a few weeks ago, I should say, with me a little bit, but we didn't get into too much detail regarding it. But from what you told me, it does sound interesting, and it is something that I am wanting to check out at some point in time.
Yeah, I'm going to have to join you of not having cable. I think that's just a waste of money. Sometimes when I have free time, I scroll, channel surf, because I have a TV in the office. Sometimes I want a visual while I'm doing something so I could distract my mind. And I'm like, wait a second, these are like repeat shows, like from the following day. They keep it on circulation. I say to myself, am I paying for this crap?
Yeah, no, and it's been like that for a good while. That paired with the fact that you're paying for you want one channel and they're giving you 15 of them for an additional $40 that you're not ever going to watch. It was just not a good investment on anybody's part, in my opinion.
Right. I concur, and I think streaming is the new frontier. And if you want a particular channel, you could just order the channel and have the streaming service on your portable device. I think that's going to be the way to go.
Oh, absolutely. It's like between Netflix, Hulu, all that stuff, some of which we can't get here in Canada, mind you. But there's always a way that the more popular TV shows are available to you. Like I've got my Xbox, I will download purchase episodes or seasons, depending on if I wanted to watch the show or not. The options are out there. You don't need to be spending $200, $300, $400 on cable just to watch a couple of different shows.
Right. Absolutely. Once again, I concur. And we went off topic a bit, but Ghost Bait, Kyle, It's a very intriguing show. I know you've seen paranormal reality shows on TV, Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters. There are countless number of those type of themed shows. But Ghost Bait is different, in which the investigators, Bob Magill and Tina Storer, they go to a site that's purportedly haunted, investigate the victims, the client, the persons afflicted by the haunting, and they take a psychological approach by putting them in a sensory deprivation type of environment, so that way they could confront their fears. And the thinking is that it will conjure up the spirit of the ghost, and which, label them to, I don't know, the ghost will leave the place or the person will confront their fears. It's an intriguing concept.
No, that definitely is something different. I've never heard of that type of approach for a ghost show, but definitely is intriguing. It is something that I would definitely want to check out at some point in time for sure.
But without further ado, let's get this podcast started. We have a lot of topics to cover.
The Conjuring 3 release date.
The Conjuring is by far one of the most popular franchises to date, modern franchises, and it keeps growing by each release. For example, La Llorona is also part of the Conjuring franchise, and I hear there is also a cameo for Annabelle in that film, which of course leads up to the trailer first impressions that we will be discussing later on in this podcast program. But the topic here is The Conjuring 3. Confirmations are in place that a release date will be the 11th of September 2020, and that production will begin later on this year. So far, the cast is it's sketchy, it's rumor, but aside from the leads, which is Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga, who portray Ed and Lorraine Warren, no word yet on who would be joining the cast or what type of antagonist it may be. Everything is just speculation at this point. All we have is a release date. Even the plot is rumored. According to Bloody Disgusting, there was a hint that the plot will revolve around an actual case in which a murderer was using the tactic of being possessed by the devil during his murder trial. So we don't know if that may be it. There's other rumors that it could be a werewolf, which I doubt that Ed and Lorraine Warren studied a werewolf case. I'm not quite sure I've heard of that before, unless the Conjuring series is going in a different direction. As for the director, James Wan is not directing, he is producing through his company Atomic Monster. But we have Michael Chavez, who directed The Curse of La Llorona. He is purportedly on board to direct the third installment of The Conjuring. Opinions, Kyle, on this upcoming release, and is it much needed? I mean, we have so much content out here for The Conjuring. I think it's getting oversaturated here.
I was gonna say roughly the exact same thing. You got Curse of Llorona. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Llorona.
Llorona. All right. Also, Annabelle 3, Conjuring 3. Like, there's the amount of films that are being put out in a 2-year span at this point in time in this universe. It's getting a little much. I understand that that's the big thing this day and age, is to try to make an extended universe out of everything. But the first 2 Annabelles, well, the first one was just pure trash. The second one wasn't horrible, could have been better, but I definitely have questions. I want to know what the plot is in order to see if I am actually interested in this. Like, the devil made me do a trial, plot point, I'd be interested in seeing that. But if they're going to start throwing werewolves in and a bunch of mythological creatures, like, I'm sorry, but I'm done with it.
Right. And I'm quite sure that the rights to Lorraine and Ed Warren's case files have been acquired, and I'm pretty much familiar with everything that they have done, and I've never heard of a werewolf case, so I think that's just purely rumor right now. And the Devil Made Me Do It case, I agree. That has, if it's not as boring as that film, The Possession of, I forgot the name. I know it's The Possession of something, in which the trailers was amazing, and when I went to watch the film, it was just a court case. I'm like, really? Wow, that was a bit of a letdown. But,
was that the Exorcism one?
Yeah, with Jennifer Carpenter.
Oh, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, I believe.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like I was watching Law and Order instead of a horror film.
And I thought the same thing. It was nice that they had a few bits and pieces in there of her kind of falling into the possession and things like that and getting worse and worse. But most of it was a courtroom drama.
Right. Well, I just hope that Conjuring 3 wouldn't go into that realm. And yeah, we have just so much. We have The Nun. We have The Nun 2. I heard there was a rumor with the Crooked Man. It's too much, in my opinion. It's getting oversaturated. And if the release date for The Conjuring 3, so far it's the 11th of September. But Kyle, I don't know if you're aware of this, but if this film gets moved to a January release, then that's the nail on the coffin for The Conjuring. Just how Insidious, The Last Key, and Underworld were released in January. So what that means is January is the month that the production houses, they don't have faith in that product, so they dish it out on January, which is the worst month that any film can be released. That's the dumping ground. Any other date, it's fairly well, but January seems to be the dumping ground. And if you see any films released there, that means that's it. It's over and done with.
It typically can mean that, absolutely. It also could mean that, like, yes, we don't have much faith in it, but this is also an open spot where nothing else that is going to be quite as good as what we're putting out is going to be here. So this can be like, take the spotlight, if you will. Like, look at what happened with Deadpool, because they were saying the same thing about February as well. And they tossed Deadpool on, I think it was Valentine's Day 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. And it blew up the box office.
God, Deadpool is Deadpool. I'm not even a Deadpool fan, and I'm like, okay, yeah, this is a cool looking character. Where has this guy been? I never heard of him, but yeah, so it worked out for that one. But yeah,
but just for a couple of other films that were successful in January, we did have Split in 2017 that was very successful in January, as well as Final Destination 2 back in 2003, which was released on January 31st. So definitely there is potential in that month, but coming out after the holidays and things like that, not everybody's got money to go to the theater. Right.
That's the whole approach. It's winter. Everyone has spent their money for Thanksgiving, for the holidays. No one is venturing out and anywhere. Everybody's hibernating. But you brought up two good cases there. Other cases that have seen its demise was Resident Evil, Underworld, Insidious. Those are the recent ones, which I always get Insidious and The Conjuring confused because, in my opinion, it's practically the same thing.
For the most part, they do seem like the same thing. Yeah. Plus, isn't no, that was Patrick Wilson. Was he in Insidious, or was he in
right?
something else?
Wasn't he? Huh.
I feel like he was. What was the one with Ethan Hawke then?
Insidious. Yes. Ethan Hawke. No. Okay. We got to jump onto IMDb to clarify this.
Patrick Wilson was an Insidious. Now Ethan Hawke. Let's see here. I met, by the way, a very nice man.
Yeah, he's a smart guy. Let me tell you, he knows how to allocate his attention and funds into a project that really has potential. He did that with The Purge.
Exactly, and that first movie just completely upset me, but we're not going to get into that.
Sinister.
So the film was Sinister. Yes.
Yeah.
See how confusing these movies can get when everybody makes the exact same thing.
Precisely, and I don't know. I do enjoy the Conjuring films because, in my opinion, I don't classify them as horror films. They're more as psychological thrillers revolving around a supernatural storyline. It's totally different from a full-on horror that we see ghouls and goblins attacking people, killing people. Here we have a story. The antagonist has a story. The protagonist has a story. And at the end of Act 3, we're torn. Like, okay, most of the cases, the antagonist was pretty much a tortured soul that just seems to be a little bit pissed off. How someone would be pissed off if they didn't have their morning coffee.
A few weeks ago, Johnston had made mention of the script for Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, having been changed at the last minute. So it was like completely darker and grittier. He had a couple of the people who had acted in the film even comment on that, saying, yeah, like when we sat down and we read the script, it was not the same script that we read that got us hooked into this project. So I'm hoping that if you write something dark and gritty and evil, that they stick with it and they don't just change it on them at the last second like they did with Nightmare on Elm Street. Again, Hollywood or producers or whoever it is, if they see something wrong with the film or in their eyes is wrong with the film, they're going to go ahead and try to change it, right?
Right. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes it does. Depends. But hopefully The Conjuring 3 would be darker, grittier, and it gets an R rating. Most of these films, I believe they were PG-13. I could be wrong. They have the feel of
pretty sure they were, or at least around there.
Okay.
Conjuring was, let's see, it says 15, so I'm guessing that's because it was the UK rating, so 15, probably like a PG-13 here.
Okay. Well, yeah, give it an R rating. Why not? Hollywood, they want to market horror content for general audiences, and a PG-13 sometimes it just dilutes the storyline, the visuals. I mean, correction, the visuals, not the storyline.
Oh, definitely. It's a massive problem at times. Like, I understand that this is in this age range, that's where you're going to get your most money from, because these kids have disposable incomes. They don't have rent, they don't have this, they don't have that to pay, so they can go ahead and they can splurge at the movies. So if they can't get into the film, they need to get somebody to get them in, and that's just a headache. They're going to end up not doing it, then just move on to the next thing.
right. Well, that closing out this segment, that reminds me of a funny story. There was this mother and her young son on the train, and they were talking about Annabelle. Well, this is, I think, the first Annabelle that came out. And apparently the young son, I think he was like about 5 or 6 years old, he was saying that he was scared of Annabelle, and the mother kept teasing him. And I would say to myself, you're scared of Annabelle? Oh my gosh. I remember when I was 5 or 6 years old, the movies that I watched, I couldn't sleep. Oh, and talk about the 70s and 80s. I mean, those films had boobs and the full frontals, and you see things that a little kid is not supposed to be watching.
Oh, exactly.
Times have changed.
Oh, definitely.
Mark Hamill voices Chucky in Reboot.
The biggest question about the Child's Play remake film, since at least the trailer's been released, is who or what will be voicing Chucky in the film. The speculation of either robotics or computer-generated voices, or just low-budget casting, was pretty much thrown around everywhere. Rumors of Brad Dourif was even going around early in the production, but those rumors were quickly thrown aside when Dourif and Don Mancini basically voiced their disapproval of the remake, with Mancini going as far as stating that he created and nurtured the character for 3 decades and that he wants nothing to do with the reboot in any way, shape, or form. Then last week, as we were recording actually, comes out the news that somebody is going to voice Chucky, and it's a big name. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, or Joker from the animated Batman series, is going to be voicing Chucky. Now, there still has been some like, oh no, oh yes, in regards to it, but I am super happy to hear that, because he is a serious voice actor, and this shows that the production company's not dicking around at all.
When we were recording and you had dropped that bomb that the Mark Hamill is the voice for Chucky, first thing I said to myself was, I hope that his voice doesn't get confused with the Joker, because he can really act out that Joker for the animated series. And it was a surprise. It didn't click that it was Mark Hamill. You see the name in the credits, but it doesn't click until you see the face of the name and like, oh shit, that's that Mark Hamill. But I have never been a fan of Child's Play. I prefer my horror with less humor, more serious tone and blood and gore and violence. A killer doll, I don't know, I just never got attached to that. Stacy, on the other hand, I wish she was on this podcast. She adores the Child's Play franchise. I think she even has a doll. I gotta ask her if she does.
Yeah, no, I've always enjoyed it. Like, it's not my favorite by any means, but I've always enjoyed it. Even my son used to be obsessed with Chucky for the longest time. He used to see the movies on my shelf, and he'd pull them down and ended up just throwing them in there once he figured out how to work the DVD player, the Blu-ray player, and just kind of took over from there. Now he's slightly scared of them, but it's a childhood thing. It's got that connection to a child. It's a doll. It's something that it's supposed to keep you safe or protected, like your friend right till the end, as they say. right. And I'm not sure what's going on with this franchise. Was it last year that Curse of Chucky released, and it was supposed to revitalize this dying franchise, and now we have this other reboot coming out and Mark Hamill attached to it? That's a big name right there. But overall, I hear a lot of complaints of Chucky's new look as well. Some have even said that he had someone injected Botox into his cheeks because he looks so shiny. I'm not sure if, I don't know, with this reboot, since we had Curse of Chucky last year, would people be more interested this year for this version? I don't know what's going on here. From the way that I see it, as my argument with the Craft reboot last week, this is getting the franchise out to the people. So again, it may be good, may be bad, but at least people who were not aware of Child's Play or Chucky from the past will now be aware of it. So they'll get out there, they'll go get that series or rent the films or whatever. Now, the way that, or what you were saying was about the film Curse of Chucky trying to revitalize the series. If you think about it, the series has been revitalized a few times. So there's Child's Play 1, 2, 3, kind of died down. Then 7 years after that, Bride of Chucky came out. Just, everyone loved it again. Seed of Chucky sucked.
I heard.
Well, half sucked. Half sucked. I did enjoy some parts of it. And then Curse of Chucky happened, 9-10 years after that, and that got it back on the map again because it was a good movie. A lot of people, it was basically a sleeper movie for that year. People didn't realize that it was not a remake and it was actually a continuation. They had to watch the film to see that. And then Cult of Chucky wasn't the greatest, but again, still continued the series. But with everything that's been going on lately, like the Channel Zero television series being canceled on Sci-Fi, they pretty much did that to pick up Chucky with Brad Dourif as a series. Again, going back to our conversation from a week ago, we don't know how long that's going to last because Sci-Fi is notorious for just canceling shows early. But this gives the opportunity for people to be like, all right, well, this is my Chucky, this is what I'm watching, or you know what, I'll give this new one a chance just to see, or let's do both just because we have the option now.
I believe at the same time when Chucky was out, Full Moon Entertainment had their own Killer Dolls films and franchise. Now it's a franchise. Puppet Master. I favored Puppet Master over Chucky for some strange reason, and that has not gotten a reboot. I don't think so. It's just kept getting more additions to that franchise. But I'm digressing. With this new installment from Chucky, there's so many changes that is involved. We have a new look for Chucky. Something about the storyline is changing. I read here and there. I haven't really delved into it and how the reaction is around it. But of course, that's always going to be the case when a new installment of a franchise is in the works. How does it tie into the original, etc., etc.? In my opinion, I'm just going to have to wait and see. I'll wait till this film to come out on DVD to give it a watch. Because in all honesty, I've only watched, like, sprinkled all the other installments that you had mentioned, but I have only seen part one in its entirety.
I know a lot of people who watched only part one as well, and I've actually turned them on to checking out the second one as well, because it's in my opinion, it's about 10 times better, and not only what do you call it? The graphics or practical effects. Sorry. So it's like 10 times better in practical effects. The voice acting is better. It's not as silly or goofy. Like there's a couple of one-liners here and there, but it is pretty violent still, and it's definitely probably the best one there is out there. And then if you haven't seen Bride of Chucky, that's where the comedy starts.
Right. Which leans onto that realm of Leprechaun and all those. But with Child's Play 1, well, any horror movie that was released during that year, there was always that silly one-liner. Even Freddy Krueger did that, and hey, it garnered a large following. For now you release a film like that, and they'll instantly say, "Oh, that sounds corny" or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's true. But times change, right? A lot of people like different things nowadays. Like anytime that you see the one-liner killer, it's usually in an indie horror film, and it's usually because of a throwback to those types of films. And just people like us would understand that because we grew up with that stuff, or we've seen it in the past, and we understand it. But it'll fall on deaf ears with the younger generation, because they'll be like, "Why is this guy talking? Why isn't he killing people?"
Precisely. So, in all honesty, let's just weigh our opinions here. Mark Hamill's attached with the voice for Chucky. What are your opinions here? Can we see a potential success with this, just like Halloween did with its release?
I would think so, yeah. My biggest thing is definitely the addition of Mark Hamill, because that was the one that was people were on the fence about. If the voice wasn't going to be any good, or if it was going to be a robotic thing, they were going to refuse to see it. They weren't paying for it. It doesn't exist to them. But now that's been announced, every person that I've seen that was on the fence are like, okay, I'm going to give this movie a shot just because he's doing the voice. And what he needs to, or what they need to do, the production company, is that they need to ensure that he does not, or they do not put out Mark Hamill's voice on any of the trailers. Because if they do that and somebody hears it and it turns out that they don't like it, you lost a movie ticket. put in a laugh, because he can do a good laugh regardless of if it's Joker or anything else. But other than that, save it for the movie. Then you're going to keep those people who are still intrigued to hear what he sounds like paying for those tickets.
Right. I agree. I concur. That also applies to, well, we know what Chucky looks like, but for any filmmaker who's creating a iconic killer or creature, whatever the case, please, for the sake of everything that's holy, don't show the creature in the trailer or the killer in the trailer. Save it, build some suspense, and that without showing or show the profile, but don't show the antagonist. That just builds suspense, and it makes people watch the film to see who does this killer look like? What does it look like? And in this case, Kai bring up a good point. With the voice, don't put it in a trailer. I agree.
Akira gets ticket to big screen.
For years now, we have heard rumors floating around that Akira will be getting a live action adaptation, and the name attached to that project was always Leonardo DiCaprio. For those who are unaware, Akira has to be one of the most iconic manga anime films to come out from the Asian film market. The animated film released in 1988, it's rated R, pure action for an animated film. I remember watching this years ago, and this was one of the first anime films that really got me intrigued into the whole culture before it became pop culture and Comic-Con, the people dressing up as these characters. These old slate of anime films was the ticket into this market. Akira, the synopsis for Akira is a secret military project endangers Neo-Tokyo when it turns a biker gang member into a rampaging psychic psychopath that only two teenagers and a group of psychics can stop. So right now, Leonardo DiCaprio was awarded $18.5 million. This is from the Golden State of California that awards these incentives for filmmakers. And that's a pretty hefty chunk for a film production. Wherever that money could be allocated towards, hey, hopefully it will be for costume design, because Akira is really intense on visuals and costume, and the vehicles are amazing. Kyle, have you heard of Akira, and what is your opinions on this upcoming live action adaptation?
Now, I've definitely heard of the film as well as the manga. I've never read it, never actually watched the original animated version of it, or I believe it was 88 animated version of it. From everything that I'm getting here, or that I've read regarding this, is that the biggest issue is that a lot of people are upset that the grant that Leonardo DiCaprio got of $18 million is forcing them to film in California, and they're slightly upset that they're not able to have them film in Tokyo, which they claim will ruin the film for them. Now, the only thing that I have to say in regards to this, and remember, I know nothing about this film, nothing about this franchise. I sell these mangas at work, and I still know nothing about them. This is Hollywood. They can make Iron Man fly. They can make giant killer creatures, both practical and digital variants, as well as make Tom Cruise look like he's tall. So they can make anything happen. They can definitely make California look like Tokyo.
Right. And that's an interesting point. And it's one thing to film in California, but a lot of what's been happening lately, especially with anime and mangas, is the term whitewashing. And that happened with the Netflix release of Death Note, which had a successful manga, successful anime, a series of films, all Asian cast, but it moves on to Hollywood and we have a all Caucasian cast, and it was met with negative reception. Of course, Hollywood is going to change the cast members. Should it be all Asian cast? Of course, sure, that would be great. It would showcase diversity. I think that's another topic in itself, in addition to shooting in California and not shooting in Tokyo.
Like, I think that's what Leonardo DiCaprio is aiming for from what I've read. But the issue that you're speaking of here with Death Note, right?
Yes.
Okay, Death Note as well as Iron Fist. These are both Netflix products. They're the ones that are causing this problem. Because Iron Fist was supposed to have an Asian lead and they put in a white boy again. And same thing with Death Note. Like, I had no better term for it. But I am a white boy, I can say this. It seems like it's just a Netflix issue. Like, they're the ones who were causing this issue. So Leonardo DiCaprio, he's like you said, he's been attached to this forever. He wants to see it done right. He's more than likely going to push to do what he can in order to make this happen the proper way, in order to make the fans happy, as well as anybody else who wants to learn about the manga or the old animated film, anything like that. Like, he's the type of guy who wants perfection, and he's going to find it any way he can.
Yeah, I concur. And I assume Leonardo DiCaprio is a big fan of anime, because to select Akira out of the slate of films, Akira is it's iconic. It's one of the most iconic films out there for anime and manga, and the Japanese market really exploded with that film, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but yeah, I agree. I think since he's been attached to this project for so long, I think this is going to be a passion project. He's going to make it look nice, attractive visual wise, costume wise, and yeah, I'm familiar with the plot. I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to be created. I know it's going to be over the top CGI, because of course it's just, that's how the whole visual is. You're expecting that. So I'm just, let's wait and see how it turns out.
Exclusive interview. Actress Natalie Shaheen, Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
And to kick off the interview, please provide an origin story, a little bit about yourself and how you got your start in the performing arts.
Okay, great. Well, hi, I'm Natalie Shaheen, and I got pretty lucky. My parents were both in the theater and teachers. So from a pretty early age, I was raised to sort of explore the arts and sort of be free to be me. And so I got it pretty early on. I started professionally acting. And actually, I can almost tell you exactly the moment. I always knew I was a storyteller and wanted to tell stories, but I listened to James Cameron give his acceptance speech at the EMAs for Avatar, and he kind of did this beautiful call to action to all people in the industry for directing and acting and producing, and sort of just said, like, it's our job to inspire the masses and to create art and to keep humanity alive. And I hadn't ever put it in such a macro term or vernacular before, but that really spoke to me. Up until then, it was kind of just like, oh, well, I'm enjoying this. This feels like it's very important, but I didn't ever have words. And that call to action just inspired me. I knew that it was greater than me. And after that, I've been acting ever since.
And I like the key words that you pepper in that statement, which is call to action, macro. But what the phrase that really stands out for me is the fact that your parents really supported your endeavors which is fantastic. On the flip side of it, and in today's landscape, sometimes that's not the case, and we see parents that say, no, you have to get a job to pay the bills, you got to go to your 9 to 5, you got to go to school to study accounting, but yet deep down inside, that's not what the particular person wants. They probably want to be a stage performer, they want to be a clown, or something in the performing arts that they feel that passion for.
Yeah, it's funny because in our world, art isn't valued as much. And maybe because my parents were teachers, I got to see that firsthand, because a lot of the curriculum gets cut down and art is usually the first to go. And so that was always sort of a conversation happening in my home. But it is not lost on me that I got so lucky in having my parents, because not everybody's parents encourage them to follow their heart and also have the tools to help them do that. So I kind of like a double whammy of like they're not only accepting, which is, as you were saying, pretty not uncommon. I don't want to speak for other people, but not always the case. But man, they knew things. They knew how to find out where plays were to audition for. They knew how to sign me up for dance classes. I mean, I played sports my whole childhood, and I actually think that plays a huge part in my acting. And I'm my parents to thank for that too.
There can be an opportunity where the role doesn't have dialogue and your body exhibits the dialogue and communicates whatever emotion to the audience, which I find that to be more complex than to other words from a script.
You're absolutely right. It's like an age-old adage for acting of it. Acting is reacting. And I think probably every teacher under the sun has said this at some point, but it's so true.
Right.
Acting isn't necessarily the words, although it can be, but it's also just the moment and listening to the other person and allowing circumstances to be alive inside you, and that usually means in your body.
Jumping into your upcoming film, your upcoming role, Godzilla, King of Monsters. Wow, so I could
Talk
approach
about
this.
Acting in your body. That was action packed.
I could imagine, but I know for a fact that there is no guy inside the costume and everything is CGI with the creature. That comparison to the Japanese version where he did have to act with his body.
Yeah, and I'm not going to speak to exactly the behind the scenes of it because I don't want to ruin the movie magic, but it blows my mind, the technology that has evolved into this kind of film. I mean, there were certain things like, I had never seen this before, but there's a thing called storyboards, which is essentially sort of like a almost comic book of how the story is going to go. And usually it's production and the director use it to set up shots and things. But they had animated storyboards. So we would be watching little animated versions of ourselves acting out the scene before shooting the scene at times, kind of give us an understanding of like the atmosphere that we were in and all of that. It was pretty cool. I don't pretend to understand the technology, but I definitely enjoyed it.
Oh, that is clever. And in my opinion, I think things like that, even changing the landscape of storyboarding with that type of technology is just revolutionary. It's mind-boggling.
Absolutely. And it's funny because it's like coupled. It was such a great experience. Michael Dougherty as a director is just a pleasure to work with. And so it was like this beautiful coupling of high-tech animated storyboards and then him playing old school Godzilla noises to like pump us up. So it was a perfect marriage of all of the above as far as technology is concerned.
I'm looking forward to the film. I'm looking forward to the build-up because I am aware that this is going to be Godzilla versus King Kong pretty soon.
I mean, I don't know, but that would be exciting if it was.
The character you portray, Lieutenant Batten?
Routine, yes. It's actually an homage. It's pretty cool.
Really?
He is one of the first physical actors to sort of put that on the map of sort of like how circus does the apes and things like that, sort of that physical kind of acting. It's a sort of Easter egg homage to people who understand that sort of physicalized character acting, which is kind of cool. Michael did that a lot with stuff. There's a lot of Easter eggs in this Godzilla that if you don't get it, you're still going to enjoy the film. But if you do get it, it's going to be like so cool.
Well, I'm hyped up already. You're really selling the product here.
Honestly, I'm so excited about it. I'm so proud to be a part of this production. It's I don't even think I'm doing it justice. We had just such a good time doing it.
Without revealing too much, I know it's kind of difficult, but what can you tell us about your character?
Well, what I can share with you is a lot of the, like, I guess let's call it prep work that I did. What's really fascinating about playing a female in action is you kind of get to explore the dynamic of being a female in a man's world. What does it mean? What kind of upbringing and what kind of training does a woman have that can bring her to the elite who, she would be in this kind of position? And so to me, what was really cool about it was it's like prepping for the film was like a micro behavioral research into what a lot of women in real life have to overcome or sort of evolve into to become active members and equals in what's typically a male-dominated world, which would be, like combat and military type stuff. Anytime like action is involved, and it's really cool. And sort of on like an actor note, looking at all the predecessors before me of female combat actors and women in action that have done it. So I won't say too much about the film, but I will say that something I really enjoyed, the character development. What does it mean to be a female in combat?
One topic that always surfaces in our podcast and in our content writing form online is women in horror. But I do indulge in action films, and I do appreciate especially women in combat. Off the top of my head, like the TV show Strike Back, they always showcased strong women in those type of roles, which is it really showcases the diversity of our military.
It does. And what's really cool about it is it highlights the fact that strength comes in so many different packages and has so many different meanings, and that brawns aren't necessarily the only version of strength, and that brains are strength, and puzzle solving is strength, and nimbleness and agility are strength. And, like you can have someone, if you have an army full of all the same person, you're only going to be able to attack in one particular way. And the diversity really highlights that in this film well, I think. They do a good job of like, everybody has a function and they're not all the same, and strength in numbers.
For your role in this upcoming film, Godzilla, what was it like? How long was the process on the set? Was it physically intensive? So on and so forth?
There were some days where we were, sitting at tables having conversations or doing technology type stuff. And then there were other days. One of the most physically exerting scenes lasted for about 3.5 days of shooting. And it was like, of course, this is the scene that takes so long to shoot. And we're getting all the angles and it's a lot of fun.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're going home and you're icing and heating and getting ready for the next day to do it all over again.
I've heard comical stories from other interviewees as well, that one day they all battered or bruised or covered in blood, and the next day they got to get all cleaned up and go to a modeling shoot.
Yeah, I actually had that. There's one scene where we're running with our guns and we're in combat, and I hit my forehead with my gun. Now, very klutzy move. It gave me like a very specific kind of bruise on my forehead, which could totally work for my character. But then the next day, I had a shoot for something else completely different, and the makeup artist was like, "What is this on your forehead?" Like, "Oh, I hit my head with my gun."
Oh my
She
God!
was like, "Okay."
Oh wow, that is a comical story. This never ending to hear
Yeah,
stuff
I felt
like.
very silly. Nobody else hit their head with their gun, but was the last time I did that. That's for sure.
But was there military training? You had on-set consultants to show everyone how to maneuver around?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was really cool. I didn't realize this. I'd been on other sets that were military, and we've always had training. But to have the level of experts around to constantly be consulting with you, or, like maybe I had particular questions on particular things, like if this were actually happening, what would be the priority here? Would I be here or here? Would my focus be on this? And there was no shortage of expert. There's a weapons expert, a tactical expert, an army expert. And we also had training before we even started shooting, which was so much fun.
Well, at least if you didn't go to the gym, I think this would replace the going to Blink or someplace else.
Absolutely. I was thinking about that a lot on set. Like, this is just so funny. They should make I'm using air quotes, like a movie boot camp.
Right.
Where it's like,
right.
Get to set on time, sprint, and then pick up your gear, sit back down, pick it back up, sit back down. It'd be a great workout. I think people would go for it.
Of course. These days, hey, if they could have dog yoga, I'm sure that would pick up too.
Exactly. I just saw a thing on the internet for goat yoga. So I feel like combat boot camp isn't that big of a stretch.
I wouldn't doubt it. It will make money. One thing with Godzilla that I noticed just off the surface is it seems to be a female-driven narrative, especially with the leads. Usually we will find males in those type of roles, which is man versus the unknown, or man versus the creature, which is the literary direction for writing. For now, we could say female versus the unknown.
Yeah, I think my favorite fact about Godzilla is that he stands for balance. Maybe some chaos happens, maybe some buildings get crushed while he's restoring balance. But he stands for balance. He brings everything back to a peaceful state. And what's kind of cool about this is, like, this particular film is there's a lot of balance just across the board, in diversity, in having so many strong women. And it's just, I think that theme is threaded throughout the entire film so well. And I think it really plays a part in how many women you see on screen. There's a true balance.
Yes.
And all types of women. It's not just like, oh, we put that one woman in there, the token woman. Like, there's women in all functions and all roles. It's pretty cool. I'm very proud to be a part of this. It's
informative, that your comment on Godzilla being I'd never seen it that way before. Perhaps it was just a fanboy that always sees Godzilla as this cool radioactive creature, but that's very, very profound.
Yeah, well, I've always been a Godzilla geek. It's sort of this is all just so perfect for me, being in this film and all of the above. But that's always been, I guess, maybe I can't even take credit. I think that's the thing my dad and I talked about. I think I might have to give him credit for noticing that. But in the very beginning stages, when you don't really have too much information to go off of for prep, I really just researched Godzilla in general. And that's the thing that I really sort of grabbed onto as far as narrating and, I guess, navigating my research into the world. It's like, he's balanced.
Right. Yeah, I saw the social political commentary behind this creature being that he was a product of mankind's unattentiveness to nature. He's a product of radioactivity, us dumping, us not taking care of the oceans. Yeah, well, and I guess maybe the balance concept is my own filter on that, but that I'm not necessarily sure if that's exactly the route that this particular film is viewing it, but I absolutely agree that that is an interpretation of Godzilla's origins, and certainly very real.
But even then, that he's created to balance. Then, if that's the case, it's sort of restore or clear out.
Before we jump in some questions on your acting, what is from what you have seen so far and your experience on the film, how would you plug this upcoming film Godzilla to audiences? What can we expect here?
This film sort of has a piece of everything in that you can expect all the action and everything that you come to the theater to have to experience, that visceral Godzilla film, but it's so character driven and it's so cinematic that it almost sells it short to just call it an action film. Okay. So, I mean, I would just say it's the ultimate experience, a human experience.
Good pitch.
Thanks.
Going back to your acting career, looking over your IMDb, I can see that you have evolved from small roles of a woman in a trunk, and now you're bumping your head into your weapon here in the set of Godzilla. How can you describe your evolution as an actress here and your continuing evolution? Because the sky's the limit for you.
That's a great question. It's funny because I was the woman in a trunk, but it was a John Hillcoat film. So that was almost like a clinic in acting and being on set on its own. I got to have a scene with Kate Winslet, who is just a majestic woman in all meanings of the word. She's talented, but also generous on screen, off screen, and sort of be able to watch her work and then to evolve into watching, so all my smaller roles were truly gifts in that I learned so much. In fact, I'm glad that I started. Some people start acting and then hit like a really huge role, and like, of course, that would be lovely.
Right.
But I'm really grateful for having some time on set with less of a demand on my character or things along these lines, so that I could really observe the people that have been doing it forever, or just experts at it, because there's so much to learn. And so, yeah, I evolved. Part of where Godzilla comes from is I picked up Muay Thai 9 years ago. And so it's funny, is it took me a really long time to realize that fighting and acting could go hand in hand. And I love sci-fi. I love the horror genre. And slowly but surely, I was seeing more and more women in these roles. And I was like, wait a second. I'm not connecting these two things. So that's been my most recent evolution in my acting career, is starting to pursue more action-based things. But I think it's a pretty typical story of, you start with small roles, go to medium roles, and you start hoping for small roles and bigger things, and then hopefully medium roles and medium things, and you just keep going from there.
As a martial arts aficionado, I have to say, hey, wow, Muay Thai, very demanding art, because it's really you using everything at your disposal, your elbows, your shins.
Everything. It's the best workout I've ever had.
Well,
and I've done a lot of different workouts.
In my opinion, Muay Thai and Capoeira are two very physically intensive martial arts. That's my personal opinion.
I agree. I actually say this a lot because I think that my acting got better when I started really paying attention to Muay Thai. And it's an art, the martial arts exists for a reason. And it's because it's a dance. It's an expression.
Right.
And I really, honestly, you learn how to stay in the moment when you're in the ring, because if you're not paying attention, you're going to get hit.
And hit
and
hard.
with acting, you might not get hit, and hit very hard, and you're going down. And acting is the same thing. If you're not paying attention, as we were talking about earlier, acting is reacting. If you're not paying attention, you might not get hit, but certainly it's the scene's going to drop.
Good parallel, great parallel. Picking up from what you have described, that with your role, that you have learned, you've seen other people on set. I've heard that a lot, especially from the horror sector, the independent horror scene, where actors and actresses want to gain experience by being on the set, seeing how the director directs, the producer produces, and getting all that knowledge and eventually creating content on their own, because we have all these platforms that are disposable, such as Facebook, YouTube. Is that something that you also would consider, since you're gaining so much knowledge behind the set?
I mean, that's a perfectly timed question. I just directed my first film that I wrote last month. And I enjoyed every second of it. And I would not have been able to do it if I hadn't had all the years on set experience that I had up till now. It was almost like my school for being on set behind the camera.
Right.
And I loved it. It was great. It was a really humbling learning experience.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, directing, everyone should try every part of it once, just so they have an understanding about what everybody on set is going through when we're all on it together.
Exactly.
Because the director wears so many hats that if you haven't had experience doing it, you might not understand how much they're doing. I'm certain I didn't know up until doing it myself.
Right.
And that's just on a short. That wasn't even on, Godzilla.
Right. Yes, there is so much complexities involved in being a director, and it's nerve-wracking because anything could happen on the set at any given time, and it's just thinking on the fly. And it goes back to what you had described with martial arts. It's just being on point. If not, you're getting sit down in your butt if you get hit with a shot.
It's pretty incredible. There's a certain accountability to directing that was a new thing. With acting, you're always helping someone else realize their own vision. And with directing, you're sort of on the hook for everything. Like, everything's your idea, which is great and wonderful. But like, also, if it doesn't work, you're the one who's got to figure it out too.
And jumping off of that, what do you have upcoming? You described your film short. Any upcoming roles that we will be able to see you in?
So yes, but I'm not allowed to talk about either of them yet. But I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, that is always the trick question.
NDAs. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Those NDAs, I tell you, they're always the hurdle when it comes to this part of the interviews.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like, yes, and man, do I want to tell you about it,
but I can't.
I don't know if I can. Yeah.
It's perfectly understandable. That's why we always say, hey, whatever you can share.
Yeah.
But, another question that I like to infuse into the interviews is an inspirational aspect, especially for those out who are trying to pursue their career in the performing arts or who may not have the support of their parents. What advices do you have for them?
Someone just asked me this, and I really had to think about it, because a lot of the advice that I've been given is cliche.
Mm-hmm.
And, when somebody says, what's the one piece of advice, you want to have something clever to say. But I grew up playing soccer, and this is not an acting quote at all. It's a soccer quote. But my coach used to say it, or I guess yell it at us every day, multiple times a day. And it's, if you don't shoot, you can't score. And of course he meant, kick the ball in the goal. But also that applies to acting, because acting's such a gamble. It's such a, you could be the most talented person in the world and just never walk into the room that has the job that's right for you. Or, there's so many moving pieces, and so many of those pieces are out of your control. So it's like, really, you just have to keep walking in the room. Like, if you don't shoot, you won't score. And it's hard to say advice because it is so subjective, and it's like everyone's journey is so different and you never know. But at the same time, if you don't try, it's not going to happen.
Right. And that is so true. And also, it also goes into, for actors or actresses, just pick up different roles, but whether it be voiceovers, on commercials, because it's all about sharpening different tools, and those different tools can lead to a bigger role.
100%. Couldn't agree more. It was what we were just talking about. If I wasn't the kidnapped woman in the trunk, I wouldn't have learned very valuable lessons to bring me into other roles that are larger. And you have to try.
Absolutely. You had mentioned that you have seen females exerting more dominance in the horror and science fiction landscape. Is there something that you would like to pursue as a particular role in a film, that non-existing film, hypothetically speaking?
Oh yeah. Well, first of all, Xena Warrior Princess has been like a favorite thing of mine for a very long time. She-Ra was my favorite like figurine growing up. So there's always been warrior women in the world of my play that have been really strong, I guess role models, even though it's funny to call a figurine a role model, but
right.
Really strong women. And I would happily play any reboot of any of those women. But I've always just really been kind of enchanted by this idea of like a warrior woman, someone who, warrior princess, someone who, could choose one particular life and instead decides to defend the honor of her people. And so that type of role has always been a dream. I'll take any warrior princess, but I love Xena, so there's that.
I think I read along the grapevine a rumor that She-Ra may be made into a feature film. I could be wrong. I think I've read it somewhere. That would be great.
I want to read that grapevine. That sounds so cool.
I know He-Man is getting a reboot.
Film I would love to see.
Same here. Closing out the interview, please share your social media handles of where audiences can get a hold of you online, Twitter, Instagram.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. I'm at Natalie Shaheen for pretty much everything. Instagram, I'm at Nat, N-A-T _ Shaheen, and that's S-H-A-H-E-E-N. That's me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the things.
Oh, great.
Try to keep it simple.
That is easy. Yeah, because sometimes when their surnames are common, you have to put number 1 or 2 or something clever to differentiate yourself from others. Great.
Yeah, somebody had already taken Natalie Shaheen on Instagram, so we had to go with Nat. But I'm the first to come up when you put that in.
Thank you so much for this interview, for conversing on your acting evolution and continuing evolution, and also for your upcoming film Godzilla. Congratulations on that, and also for your short film as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks. This has been a lot of fun, actually, so I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me.
Segment 2. Television and streaming. Creepshow cast developments.
So it's been announced that the upcoming television adaptation of the 1982 anthology film, which was originally written by Stephen King and directed by George A. Romero, Creepshow, is going to feature the likes of Adrienne Barbeau, Giancarlo Esposito, and Tobin Bell in the episode entitled Grey Matter, which I believe is episode 3 for the first season. It's based off a short story written by King himself, which can be found in the 1978 collection of his Night Shift series. I believe it's just the anthology book. But if you don't know, Esposito played Gus Fring on Breaking Bad. Tobin Bell, if you recognize that name, it's because he played John Kramer or Jigsaw in the Saw films, or Jigsaw, which was the latest film as well. And Adrienne Barbeau, which you know from everywhere, including the original Creepshow, Escape from New York, The Fog, and the unfortunate abortion that was Death House as well, which is just sad.
Oh.
Yeah, I went there. So, in my opinion, this is excellent casting. They're obviously doing a throwback to the original, as well bringing on Barbeau, which I like to see, definitely. They got some heavy hitters for some of these segments here, and the fact that they're still working with King to develop some of the the shorts here, or taking at least some of his work in order to be able to do that, it's fantastic. Like, it's gonna give us the feel of the original film, hopefully. But from the looks of it, that's what it feels like.
That's interesting, and I see that there is a resurgence of nostalgic series heading over to both television and streaming service. We have the reboot for the Twilight Zone. Now we have Creepshow, and these are shows that, in my opinion, hold more weight for long-standing seasons on whichever platform it may be, whether it's TV or streaming, because it's basically an anthology, and each story is different. It could weave into any other direction, as opposed to taking a particular film title and stretching it out too thin. Case in point, The Exorcist or Bates Motel. I'm looking forward to Creepshow. I really enjoyed that series, and I would see this developing extremely well for streaming, especially for anyone who may have not, for some strange reason, seen the films.
Yeah, no, the practical effects look amazing in it. Like, they're really sticking with the old school style, especially with Greg Nicotero running the show. You know there's going to be great stuff, because most recently he's been doing, I believe, The Walking Dead. Anytime that he would direct an episode, it was a good episode filled with amazing effects. So now that he's completely in charge of a show, you know that he's going to use his full capabilities to give us those monsters, the gore, like all the stuff that we crave as fans of 80s horror. Now,
right.
on what you were stating about with anthology series, this day and age, it's perfect for it, I find, because due to the lacking attention of kids, they're easily distracted. They like phones and such, but they still like their horror. It's something that they started growing up with. All the kids' shows and cartoons and things like that, like, they're pretty much all horror based, but to a friendlier degree. So I think this is something that is perfect for them, to be completely honest. Right.
Yeah. Oh, a Creepshow. Yeah. It's an amazing film for anyone who hasn't seen it. This Creepshow is heading up on Shudder. That's one thing I haven't subscribed to.
Really?
Yeah. And the reason why was when Shudder first started, I've subscribed to this service for about a year, and every film that I watched, serious lag, hiccups, I mean, every problem imaginable. I couldn't watch one film in its entirety. Buffering. I felt like I was using dial-up. So I said to myself, you know what? I canceled the service and haven't given them a chance. It just, when you try something out and it doesn't work out, it's just like a relationship or something like that. It doesn't work out. Sorry, you got to move on.
But I can tell you now, Shudder has improved their service like tenfold. I ran into the same issues previously. It was not all episodes or shows or whatever it was that was streaming, but specific ones, it would either not load up, or it would load up and I get 5 minutes worth of show time, and same things, lag and buffering and all sorts of stuff. But they've since the entire Joe Bob broke Shudder incident, I believe a year ago.
Yeah,
they've upgraded everything, and I've not had an issue since.
Right. Hey, Stacy says the same thing. She said, yeah, she was kind of disappointed with the Bob incident, and she even told me, yeah, give Shudder a try again. Hey, I enjoyed the layout of the site. Maybe. Right now the funds are not what they are. I'll probably subscribe to it once my funds are more suitable. But yeah, Creepshow is. I'm looking forward to this. As you had mentioned, you have someone attached to it that really knows how to convey creature effects, directing. So I enjoyed the movie. I seriously am looking forward to this.
Netflix set release date for Ted Bundy.
Netflix has really been churning out the horror content as of late, and I keep mentioning that whether it's overseas markets, domestic, they're really investing a lot of money into original programming or acquiring programming. It's sad to say, just a couple of days ago, I caught the early morning news and heard that Netflix is going to raise their prices for membership subscriptions. And that's one thing. Hey, I don't want to be paying so much money, let's say per month, for a streaming service. But on the other hand, I know that you're providing great content. So it's a torn, when you got to budget yourself, you're torn. Do I really need this? Or can I allocate these funds to something else? Well, I'm digressing from the topic. Right now we have Ted Bundy in release. Netflix acquired it for $9 million. And here's another thing before I jump into the topic. There's this whole controversy with film producers, old hags in Hollywood saying fuck you to Netflix. And it's all because Netflix is thinking outside the box concept of creating content, and why shouldn't they win awards? Well, in the case of Bundy, this Ted Bundy film, it's going to have a limited theater release as well as being presented online. So I seeing that, I'm assuming that this film may be headed for some prestigious award category. Zac Efron portrays the role of the serial killer Ted Bundy, and the trailer dropped. I'm much impressed. I heard that he was going to take this role, I think a couple of years ago or early last year, and I said to myself, okay, you were in a couple of comedy movies, one with The Rock. You gotta really convince me that you are really demented and a serious actor to take up this charismatic, suave killer named Ted Bundy, and he knocks the ball out of the park. Really impressed with that performance. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to release May 3rd on Netflix. Yeah, I can't say anything negative here, as I just gotta have to wait and see, watch the film and digest the content fully. Kyle, what do you think about this?
Candy for girls, things like that. But the guy's always been good at his craft, and hopefully this is what's going to push him over the edge for people to go, holy crap, this guy actually is a good actor.
Right.
And
right,
just
right.
in the first trailer, we'll say that the controversial trailer where they make him look like this, like super hunky whatever the hell, they like, just in that alone, like he looked like he was Ted Bundy. Like he took in the role, he did it properly. So like, hopefully the rest of the film follows suit, and it just didn't take bits and pieces where he looks like a great actor. But
right.
Even in the second trailer, when things are darker and that, same thing, like he's taken that character and he's going to go with it. Like it's awesome.
Right. And the clever ploy here for the film is that we're not seeing, for those who aren't aware of what Ted Bundy did, he used his suave and charm to basically lure his victims and kill them. Was it a rumor, or was a proven fact that after he had killed them, he had sex with he was a necrophiliac? I'm uncertain. Was that the case?
I think that was a rumor, because I don't think he ever admitted to it. Like I watched the documentary, but that was a portion that I either missed because it's the long documentary, but I don't recall hearing that at all.
Yeah, well, he very, very intelligent guy, and he also was so narcissistic and arrogant that he even defended himself in one of his murder trials. Hey, you gotta give credit to do. The guy thought he was all that. Hey, whatever. But the perspective from this film is not from his point of view, but his girlfriend's point of view, Liz Kendall, who, according to the report issued from DecayMag.com, she basically refused the truth about her boyfriend Ted Bundy committing all these atrocious acts.
Yeah, exactly, and that's opposing to the not opposing, sorry, but a different approach than what the documentary did as well, right? So from the documentary standpoint, you're looking at what Ted Bundy did. Basically, you're seeing it through his eyes, or his garnering the attention of the media, and now you're going to see it from a different standpoint, which is from her angle. You're going to see him as a good guy, which is probably why, again, they did that like nice guy trailer thing originally. But that's what they're trying to portray. This is what she saw. Like, she didn't see anything bad that he did. She just kept seeing all the good stuff. So you're probably going to see his character or his personality unfold bit by bit as she's kind of like progressively either studying him or seeing what's happening with him as new information comes out. And it's going to be another one of those kind of like a mental breakdown of her character, more than likely, once she realizes, like, oh my God, I let this guy into my family, and so on. So I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Right. Yeah, same here. I'm looking forward to the film. And yeah, I had the impression Zac Efron was more comedy. I've never followed much of his work. Only based on his recent films. I believe, what was it, Neighbors, and the one with The Rock, that he was a lifeguard. I believe he was in that one too. So
Baywatch, I think.
Baywatch, right. So like, whoa, what's this hunky guy, as you have mentioned, eye candy? And like, wait a second, he's gonna be portraying this right? But he does a good job, I admit. And comedy, in my opinion, seems to is more difficult form of acting, being that you have to say the joke, you have to do the timing right in order to get that laugh from the audience. In my opinion, I think it's more intensive than, let's say, drama. It's that timing and that body language and everything that comes into play with delivering a funny joke. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. He portrays a good role, but the thing that really highlights is that Netflix is gonna do this limited theatrical release for the film. I think that all ties in with this controversy with Spielberg, and her name escapes me, but she just insulted Netflix a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I've never caught her name, but I definitely did read up on that as well. And in my opinion, okay, original content, whatever it may be, it's still a show. It's still, people are paying to watch this. If it qualifies, or if it's good enough to win an award, or if it's better than what's currently winning an award, it should at least get considered. If they want to snub it, whatever, but at least give them a nomination or something. Especially for their documentaries, because they've got some fantastic documentaries that they've fronted the bill for, and it does need some extra recognition.
Right. And Netflix, they took out two separate billion-dollar loans, and all that money for those loans is being allocated to buying, acquiring, and producing original content, and as well, as I mentioned, raising the prices for subscribers. That money also is going into original content. And Netflix is playing a huge gamble, and I think it's going to work out, not in the short term, but in the long term. And this whole controversy that's going on, they're definitely going to succeed, because I've read also that the government issued a warning to the awards panel, stating that if they attempt to change any rules and regulations, putting an exception to any content Netflix puts into the to be considered for an award, that they will be sanctioned. And I think that was a good move.
No, absolutely, because like I said, they've got some fantastic stuff that they've paid to have made their originals, their documentaries, even their nature documentaries are fantastic as well. Like, there's so much great content down there. It's a shame that they're in debt by so much. And like you said, the long game can work out for them, but they just need to find a bit of a better business model in order to be able to, jump that gap. And if they can't do that, they're just going to end up jacking up the rates for subscribers again. They just did it a few months ago. Now they're doing it again. Like, it's going to be $20 a month for me, maybe a little bit more here in Canada, and we get maybe half of the stuff you guys get over there as for paid content that isn't their original stuff.
Right. Yeah, and that's why I had mentioned, if they keep raising the price, I'm going to be torn, because I am on a very tight budget. If it gets to the point that it's $80, $90, or $100, I'm just exaggerating here, but I'm just throwing out figures. Yeah, that weighs. You have to make your choice. Do you buy are you going to be eating peanut butter and jelly, or are you going to watch good content on Netflix? You got to make your priorities in check here.
Exactly. And here's the thing too, the kicker is that once Disney's streaming service comes out, they keep promising that it's going to be less than what Netflix is charging. So, like, as soon as that competition kicks in, you're looking at all the Disney stuff, all the Star Wars stuff, all the Marvel stuff, as well as all the Fox stuff now. Like how are they going to be able to compete with all the stuff that people have either grown up with or love, or you know, as the new content keeps flowing in, it just keeps getting better and better. Like, and you're guaranteed that Disney quality. With Netflix, it's a hit or miss at times, where you're like, okay, well, they just came out with this, they spent X amount of millions on this, but it's not good. Right.
Yeah, and as I had mentioned, I think streaming is going to be the next frontier. Take, for example, this upcoming Ted Bundy film. I think that's a good purchase right there, and a whole lot of
definitely.
And even that documentary with Frank Grillo, Fight World, that's amazing stuff right there. So I agree with you, Kyle. They have great stuff on Netflix. Let's see. I'm glad that we live in this era that we could see this evolution of streaming. It was from DVDs, a Blockbuster. Now we have streaming. Well, what does the frontier bring? It's a good time, this digital age.
Swamp Thing gets release date.
So the previously announced Swamp Thing TV series, which is set to star Andy Bean and Derek Mears, now has a set release date of May 31st of this year. And it's based off of the comic book series that was created in the 70s, and also had an adaptation, or a film adaptation, in 1982, which was written and directed by Wes Craven, which also starred Adrian Barbeau, which we were just speaking about earlier, as well as Ray Wise and Dick Durock. So my biggest thing with this is that with the current cancellation / retirement of Stephen Amell from the Arrow television series, is this just being put in to fill a hole, or are they looking to actually expand on this franchise on its own? Because what they've been doing previously, they would cross all of these shows over, so they would have events, week-long events. So your first show would go, or your first part of the series would be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever, and you'd have to follow every single show. If you're watching a singular show, you watch this one episode that has 5 separate parts to it, and you kind of get screwed over because you don't know what's going on, and then you got to catch kind of like flashbacks, go on YouTube, try to figure it out. Hopefully they try to keep Swamp Thing simple and to itself. I'm not opposed to having crossovers here and there, but when you're doing ginormous events, because listen, I used to be a fan of all these shows, but it just got to be a headache trying to follow it week after week. And hopefully they can just keep it as simple. And next to that, Derek Mears as Swamp Thing, I'm definitely down for that alone. I'm excited to try to check it out, see what they've got, see what they're offering, and what Swamp Thing is actually going to look like. I haven't actually seen anything yet. I haven't actually looked up anything in case it's already out. But it's something I'm definitely interested in trying to check out.
Yeah, Swamp Thing. We have been covering this topic for quite a while now throughout our podcast. And as soon as I heard Derek Mears is Swamp Thing, I said to myself, hey, the perfect actor to portray the role. His facial structure really fits the makeup. You know, when you see an actor with their facial structure, their jawline, you could tell that they are made for a certain creature design or something like that. Case in point, Ron Perlman. Many weren't aware that he was the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, and it was that facial jawline and everything that really accented that. He looked like some type of lion creature, lion as in King of the Jungle, Hakuna Matata type of lion. Not a lion like he's lying on the floor, a lion. Yeah, he looked good as the role. I think Derek Mears would look good as Swamp Thing, and they're sticking true to the comic book, which is great. And I am unsure from the point that you made, Kyle, if they're going to be crossovers. I haven't been following none of the DC series, Flash or anything else, but I think this is a good move for DC to open up their streaming content with Swamp Thing. I'm sure they're gonna do it with other assets as well. With the case for Swamp Thing, I'm looking at IMDb and I see where there's 13 episodes. That's good. No pictures on IMDb yet. No description on any of the episodes, not even the pilot. But it's safe to assume, based on the coverage that we have and the information that we have on hand, that they're gonna follow through with the comic.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like from what I've seen as well. And again, I'm typically, or used to be, a big comic book reader. This was one of the series I would actually read here and there, so I don't have the full history, but I've definitely seen the 82 film, and it wasn't the greatest thing in the world, but I was still a big fan of it because it was one of the first things that I had personally seen that had a comic book character as like a film adaptation. I know there was Batman and things like that I've likely had seen as well, but that was like the first big one, because Batman was everywhere. This is one character that I had not seen anywhere else before next to the comics. So I'm wanting to tune into this for sure.
Right. And Stacey, I remember the film, and Stacey made a great point that there was a TV series back in the 90s. I didn't even know about that one. I don't recall ever watching that. But yeah, there was a TV series and a film. And I bring up the point with Beauty and the Beast because it parallels the same concept here with Swamp Thing. You have this masculine, grotesque creature, and you have this beautiful protagonist. We've seen that time and time again that they join forces. We could even put in Appleseed, the manga anime in which the male counterpart is a cyborg and the female counterpart is this beautiful sidekick. We also see it in RoboCop as well. So it's a familiar pattern.
It definitely is. It's one that it has a good relatable story to it, like Beauty and the Beast, like you were saying earlier.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like it's seen in a lot of places, but it's a very relatable storyline where, you know what, like, yeah, I may be a nerd or whatever, but you know, that hot girl, I wanna go out with her, blah blah blah, like stuff like that.
Right.
So it's, especially in the comic book world, I will say that was kind of like a big thing growing, like especially when I was growing up, because that was the main storyline for a lot of stuff, or one of the main storylines. So it's just something relatable that a lot of people enjoyed. Now this day and age, nerd is all the rage, so I don't know how well that would work out for me had I been a kid at this day and age, but
Right. Well, I wonder if it was some type of subliminal message, being that the grotesque creature would always have the quote unquote hot sidekick. Was that trying to boost up our confidence for us geeks and nerds, or whatever other term? Because growing up, I'm sure all the popular kids had the hot girls, and the unpopular kids, well, they didn't have anybody to relate to.
No, it's very true. Maybe they were just setting us up for failure, though. You never know.
You never know. Right. Well, I hope I know for a fact there's going to be some type of social political commentary with Swamp Thing. Perhaps they're going to delve into pollution, mankind not treating nature the right way, because that is the whole how Swamp Thing was created, was through dumping poisons into the swamp.
Toxic waste and such, yeah.
That's a good commentary, and we always gotta leave it up to the superheroes to provide that commentary. Beneath all those eye candy and CGI with the Avengers, there is a lot of social commentary there too.
Swamp Thing may be a different type of social commentary. It might be environmentally, considering the fact that he's turning into this thing because of like toxic waste or chemicals or whatever it may be. But there's always something that you can pick up from most of these either comic book adaptations or films or television shows. Like there's always an underlying thing. Right.
And of course, once again, we on the topic of streaming, here we have DC opening up their streaming service with more content, and of course us opening up the platform for every other competitor out there.
Exclusive interview. Bob Magill, Tina Storer, Travel Channel's Ghost Bait.
The only way for us to help you with this is to have you, on your own, face whatever this is.
I'm not afraid of you anymore, and you're not going to bully me.
Someone here with us? Ask it what it wants.
You can do this.
All new series, Ghost Bait. Thursday at 10 on Travel Channel and stream live on the Travel Channel app.
To kick off our interview, please, a little bit about yourselves. So a brief origin story. Ladies first. Tina, we'll start with you.
Sure. So I'm Tina Storer. I've been in the paranormal for almost 10 years now. And I've just always had abilities that I was afraid of, but it wasn't until I really confronted those fears and dove straight in that my abilities flourished, but also I conquered that fear. So it's amazing to be able to be part of this show, to be able to help others overcome their same fear.
Yeah, my background is kind of a combination of things that led me here. I was a therapist years ago and have a master's in social sciences, and also on the TV and film production studio, and I had a passion for paranormal. So Ghost Bait was basically the combination of all of those things put together, helping people with ghost problems and putting it on TV.
And once again, Ghost Bait would air tonight, April 4th, on the Travel Channel. So congratulations to you both. I am such an enthusiast of these reality ghost-themed TV shows.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tina, you had your own, doing research, I see that you had your own paranormal research team, and Bob, you had Ghost Bait was a very, very, very successful web series. So how did the bridge come to bring the two of you together to work on this project for the Travel Channel?
Like I said, I've been in the paranormal. I was with the team for a while. I haven't been part of a group for a long time, but I've still maintained, being a paranormal enthusiast and doing my own investigations. And I'll kind of let Bob kind of get into the whole how the new Ghost Bait came to be.
Yeah. Just to add to that, Dean and I both sort of, we were Facebook friends, if you will, and the same sort of groups of people and interests. And I always kind of saw Tina out there doing her thing, and hadn't had an opportunity to meet her, but we were looking for the co-host to a new version of the show. Her name had come up in a number of different places, and her passion for the paranormal and helping people just lined up with everything. So ended up connecting for real outside of Facebook, and that's how the two of us sort of got together for the show.
Bob, I've read, of course, when you came up with the concept for Ghost Bait, that you wanted a female-centric presentation, of course, with all the movement right now with females in horror, female in film. If it were up to you, would that be the case? Because I know that for quote-unquote demographics, now we have a male and a female in front of the camera instead of two females.
It's very observant of you to have known that. The original time that we went out and did this, it was very important to me to have at least an evenly, at minimum, split male and female cast. I think that just like Tina's background and her coming from an all female team in the past, I just think that that's important. And should we ever expand the cast, I would love to bring additional female cast members on board. Who knows? Maybe at some point they'll push me off to the side and I'll just consult, and it'll be Tina and all female cast. Who knows?
You're not allowed to do
But that would be hard to do, because I see that there's always, of course, for reality shows, you need that on-screen chemistry. So if it's there, it'll be hard to replace you, Bob.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to write that down, and if the time ever comes, I'll make sure they come talk. So I appreciate that.
So I think the balance of the masculine and feminine, with the two of us, works so well. You need both energies to do what we do, and to work with clients. And I think it's important to have that male presence as well. We have a good balance going on.
Right.
I agree.
Yes, that's true. But okay, Ghost Bait. I read about it, seen that the concept was a web series, but now that it's on the Travel Channel, what are viewers going to expect here? Because based on footage, I'm getting a vibe that's more psychological evaluation and facing your fears on a psychological level instead of a paranormal level.
Sure. In regards to what people can expect and what the approach is, as I alluded to earlier, I was a therapist for a long time, doing family and group therapy, individual therapy of all different kinds. And, Ghost Bait really is, it's observant of you to point out the psychological side of it. The psychological side of any fear, if you think about it, whether it's paranormal or fear of heights or fear of insects, it's all rooted, in our psyche. And to be able to help people, sometimes you have to, I give this example a lot. Probably tired of hearing it. If you're afraid of heights, you go up and ride an elevator to the top floor of a high building, and you look out a window, go on your first airplane ride, or if you're really brave, eventually you work up the courage to jump out of an airplane with a parachute. So that, you go back home and you have to paint your ceiling, and you get up on a 6-foot ladder, and all of a sudden it doesn't look so scary after building yourself up to all of those things, which are all psychological. So, when we find our cases and we validate our cases through our researchers and through Tina and I's interviews with them, we only take cases where we feel that there is a paranormal situation. But to overcome that paranormal situation, just like those other fears that I mentioned, it's really about the psychology of it. And it's actually, there's a fancy name for it called immersion therapy, where you basically take a fear and you immerse yourself in it as far as you can safely. And that's where Tina and I come in. We guide them through this process and bring them out the other side. And when viewers watch it, to answer your question about what to expect this time, these cases are intense. The locations are intense. The third act of the show is really about the people with that fear, with that ghost problem, and us putting them out there one-on-one, face that down, and it is very psychological to the point. But on the other side of that is a very triumphant and empowering moment where those people feel as though they benefited from it. They've taken back parts of their life that they've lost because of that psychological fear. And we take pride in that process. coming together to help them do that.
Thank you. And for Tina, there is the paranormal is very popular, and of course, the viewership is evident of that. From your opinion of what is it about the paranormal that really grabs people's attention? Is that the psychological aspect of mourning the loss, or the curiosity of when we leave our shell, which is our meat and bones, this body, that there is a possibility that we could roam as energy, as a spirit?
That's a really good question. And I think the paranormal itself is so intriguing to so many people because, one, it's unknown. And sometimes that fear of the unknown is very intriguing. That's why we love horror movies. That's why we love crime shows. That's why people love serial killers, because we don't know why these things happen to some people. And especially with the paranormal, we don't have the answers. And there's so many theories out there, and it's really fun. It's fascinating to be able to connect with other human beings and on the subject. And, throughout my time talking about this is being a paranormal figure. And I think 99% of people I come across, even in just everyday life, everyone has a ghost story. Everyone has something that once they find out that, like, I'm an investigator, they're like, oh my God, this happened to me. And it's just something that I think it's like a legend that it connects people, it brings people together, and it's something fascinating that, there's a whole world out there that I don't think science has truly caught up to it yet. But like I said, it's just that unknown element that truly brings together everyone's fears.
For one, I am dying to have a paranormal experience, a ghost experience. I never had one. I want to have one, much like I wanted to have a UFO experience, and which I did. I'm happy for that one. But my wife had an incredible story, and I'm sure this resonates across all your investigations for both of you, Bob and Tina. Is that aspect of, let's say someone's possessed, or someone goes through a traumatic experience with this phantasm or whatever entity it is. After that, is there like a residue or a therapeutic residue that the client, the victim, has to go through to get rid of this sentiment or what they went through?
I think it's important to note that with all of these cases, there really isn't one size fits all approach. Every case is different. Even out there in the real world, people that we haven't worked with, everyone has different energies. Everyone has a different way of handling their fears and coping, and their level of activity is going to be different. But I think what Bob and I do well across the board is empower people, which is really important when you're dealing with. I think that would be like kind of the one size fits all, is like claiming your space back and truly feeling empowered to no longer like succumb to that energy in a sense. And it's a day by day process for sure. It's not like we're here to help you overnight overcome something, but here's the tools to be able to overcome these fears and face them head on and give back a sense of empowerment and strength. Makes sense.
Right. And, Bob, of course, with horror cinema, we always have a backstory with the antagonist, whatever the creature may be. Let's say, off the top of my head, the nun, she has a very intriguing story. I find that every ghost location, purported haunted location, has so much rich history. Is this something that is like ingrained in the soil? That it keeps looping itself, some type of residue energy, or is it, from your expertise, the inhabitants themselves conjuring negativity with their own negative thoughts?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a tough one. I feel like, and if I'm understanding what you're getting at, each of these cases couldn't be more unique and more different. You're absolutely right, and I love that you said creature of the week. By the way, I don't know if you're a Supernatural fan, but that sounds like it could be TV show. When we encounter the different stories and the different history. Most of these places have a history. We consult historians when we can. But there's also a lot of personal histories, to your point, where sometimes we'll talk to someone that lived in the house, 30 years before them, to see if we can find a connection to why this is happening to that person. In regards to, I'm not sure if you're asking if we feel that it's tied to the history or tied to that person, and that's why these things are happening. If I think it's a combination of the two. History, we tend to think history books, old 1800s, 1700s, or Civil War, so on and so forth. A history for a lot of our cases can be as simple as the history between two people that were together, and in this world, and this actually happened in one of our cases, they broke apart and they were no longer together, but there was a lot of bad energy left between them. And in this case, we discovered that what was going on and what was tormenting this person, we believe was actually someone in her life who had passed away, and kind of focused that negativity on her in the afterlife. So it can kind of sometimes, I wouldn't say it's because of the person, but I think it could be because of their history with either the location or the entity themselves.
Almost like entanglement in a sense.
Yeah, exactly. Good word for it.
The power of the mind is such it's a mystery in itself, and there is also always the positive aspect. If you want to think success, you have to think of it, and it will come. And it can also apply it negatively. And in most cases, when watching these reality shows or reading up on research investigations, it's the inhabitants themselves that say they are saddened of a loss, as you had mentioned, Bob, and they just feel that sadness that it will either conjure a spirit, let's say, or they just want that person to stay with them, and it's on their mind.
Yeah, I agree.
Like you said, the powers of the mind we still don't know what we're capable of, and energy goes where our intention goes. So
right.
When you're dealing with these cases, if these people are focusing on their fear and how afraid they are, and it's a negative cloud that's looming over the space, that's just going to keep growing and growing, because how can you not pay attention to all that heaviness? But it truly takes overcoming one's mind to kind of turn things around, and we've seen some amazing results by not forcing people to chase their fears, but just having them overcome the fears in their mind and changing their intentions and where their energy is going.
Specifically on Ghostbait, what was the research in gathering all these? Because we have, let's see, I'm reading off, we have 12 half-hour episodes. How was all these investigation sites gathered? And
sure, we were fortunate enough, with the support of Travel Channel and the folks involved with the show, to actually have a dedicated, small but dedicated research team of people that are out there on the forums, looking for cases, looking for people that are truly in need, that seem like they really need help, and that there's something there. And then what we do is they follow those up with Skype interviews to talk to those people. And you can learn a lot from looking someone in the face and talking about their problems. And that sort of leads to the most desperate individuals in the sense of really needing help and just looking for anybody who can help validate or listen to what they're saying and take them at face value. And then at that point, Tina and I get involved. And, when we get on location, we sit down with them. And the first thing we do is talk to them. It's almost like, it's not to keep using this concept, but it's almost like its own little group therapy session. Tina and I sit down and talk to these people and really listen to them and really hear what they're saying. And then we develop our process, in real time based on that over the next couple of days. So that's sort of how the whole thing starts. It takes us across the whole country. We're very lucky to be able to help people all over the U.S.
That is a very thorough process right there. But with the gadgetry, most of these shows, let's say, for example, Ghost Adventures, they have all this state-of-the-art equipment. It's a surprise for me that science hasn't really taken a spotlight on all the evidence that have been accumulated, let's say with EVPs or thermal cameras. It's still considered with a paranormal investigation as like fringe science. But yet it surprises me because the government conducted their own research with Project Blue Book. So it's kind of a hypocrite in a kind of way. So what are your thoughts on that, Bob and Tina? Why science hasn't adapted these evidences?
I mean, I think you nailed it. I think, like I said earlier, I don't think science as we know it has caught up to these paranormal happenings. You know, we still don't understand the mind completely. We've all, those of us have had paranormal experiences. We know there's something else out there. So how do we capture that with our, the finite science that we have nowadays? And I think we're slowly going to catch up to that. And I think there's more out there, like equipment wise, but that's why we utilize what we can in the show. We, like Bob has built amazing equipment to be able to capture and simulate the energy, as you might say. And he can talk more on that, all the devices he's created. But I think it's still taboo for people because it's unknown, and it's like you said, it's fringy. It's everyone has a story, but they still feel weird talking about it. It's funny.
Right. It's still considered those campfire stories and without the evidence. If there is one thing you wish to spotlight for Ghost Bait to entice viewership, what would that one thing be, that one highlight of the show?
I really think, and it sounds cliche and it sounds too easy, but it's truly about real people and helping real people. And no matter how you look at it, it is a ghost show, and there are certainly exciting ghost stories and scary locations and all those things that go bump in the night that us paranormal fans love. But the underlying spotlight difference, in my opinion, is that these are real people with real problems that we would like to believe at the end of each episode, viewers will see literally a triumphant moment where those people take back their homes, take back their lives. And, it sounds dramatic, but if you watch it, you will see what we do.
But given your both experiences and how your fast development, what advices do you have for content creators out there, especially with the landscape that we have, social media and YouTube and Facebook, who want to pursue, let's say, for example, investigating the paranormal or creating content in general?
That's a great question. And I'm such a firm believer in whatever dream you have, whether that's to be a paranormal investigator, be a podcast host, to just be a creator, just to be an accountant, whatever you want to be, just focus on what you want and believe that it's going to happen, and just work on that goal every single day. And don't listen to anybody who will tell you otherwise. and there's no such thing as being realistic about a dream. And if you think it's going to happen, then it's going to happen. So it's just get out there, connect with people, follow the people that are doing what you want to do, and learn as much as you can, educate yourself, and put yourself out there and stop all that fear and just go for it.
I think, Bob, you have something to say because from my notes here, I read that you did read the negative comments that people were putting for Ghost Bait, and that is good in a way, because it really helps move you forward, and you say to yourself, hey, at least people are watching the show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a concept that's controversial for sure, and I'll never forget this one gentleman that when we did the original, I was live tweeting, and he was basically, trolling the strong word, but, really coming down hard on, why would you do this to people? Why, this is crazy, so on and so forth. And I literally, during the course of that episode of my tweeting, talked to him about some of the same things from the psychological aspect of it and the therapeutic side of it. By the end of that, he became one of the biggest fans. He's in Australia. He still promotes Ghost Bait. He has T-shirts. He puts them on and goes out like on a Friday night with his friends and tags the post. And we feel like as people watch it, they'll understand what it really is. It's easy at face value to say, "Wow, this is over the top. They're just looking for an angle." Just mark my words, if you're willing to watch one episode and you see how the people come out the other side, it doesn't seem quite so controversial after that. It actually makes complete sense. And it's a formula that can be applied over and over again.
Yep. It's hard to get that concept from like a 15-second teaser trailer on a commercial. like Bob said. If you watch it, there's a method to the madness, and the Golders have the best intentions possible. Same with the entire crew, and just the concept itself is not to exploit anybody, it's just to truly help people, and that's why it's different. We hope people will just see that genuine aspect of it and the authenticity.
Right. Well, for me personally, it's between the Travel Channel and Destination America that is like they really showcase paranormal reality shows. And I hate to use the term reality show because in my opinion, reality show is something that is fixed and fake. You have producers working behind the camera, setting things up. And once you put that label of reality show with the paranormal, people make the assumption that, some of these purported haunted locations are really the producers setting up things or pulling the door with the fishing wire.
No. Oh, no.
No.
Yeah, I don't. No. I know, like we went into every single case, like all of us, the entire crew. If nothing happened, then nothing happened. That's how it was, played out for us. Like, we're going to get what we get, and that's that. Time and time again, whoever's on the other side loves to really perform for us each time without even asking, but we went into it like knowing that we're not going to falsify evidence. We're going to let the viewers know that this is the real life of paranormal investigating. Sometimes we don't get things, and sometimes we don't get to validate the client, but we always did in the show. And sometimes it took a little bit more from the bait to bring up the energy into the activity. But like I said, we really didn't have to try. It was some pretty wild stuff. So I'm excited for people to watch.
I was just going to add the nice thing about regarding that question, the nice thing about not having to worry about the evidence. And, Tina said usually more often than not something happens, something shows up, but it's almost a bonus for us that this show is in fact not just a ghost show, but also a show about people, because those people are real. Their anxieties, their emotions, their problems that they're facing are so real that more often than not that becomes more interesting and supersedes learning about how much evidence there is or how intense the evidence is. That's the biggest difference, and I think that's why we never worry about that.
Right. Spot on. We have a couple of minutes left to close the interview. One question is, with the popularity of paranormal springboarded by the slate of TV shows, we see more and more paranormal investigation, amateur investigators jumping into this realm. From your opinion, what are some of the things that they really need to pay attention to? I know there's a lot of thought process to investigate the persons that are being affected by the haunting, but you have abandoned areas that should not be investigated because, of course, it's a health hazard. So what are some of the things, some pointers for amateur paranormal investigators out there?
I definitely always say don't invade private property. If you're really safe with those abandoned properties, they're just not safe. But also, I definitely tell people to be really wary of your intentions. Don't go in there trying to provoke. I'm not big into provoking for no reason. Just always handle yourself with respect and protect yourself. Don't open doors without closing them and closing out. And I'm big on giving gratitude and surrounding space and people with white light. So that would be my thing, is to kind of protect yourself spiritually and energetically.
Right. And Bob, any advices?
Just along the lines with what Tina's saying, you have to, and as do amateur, in my opinion, you should worry about this, and in air quotes, professional. Just respect the location. Expect the people. We have a policy where our showrunner, Keith, he basically always starts every day with the whole crew and says, these people have real problems. These people's problems are serious to them. So, just respect them and respect their home or respect the business we're at, whatever the case may be. I think that's where it all starts, is just understanding that this is serious. It's fun, but it's also a very serious thing. And most of the time, the people that involve or the places, they just want to be heard and respected and helped. I would say just start there.
Right, thank you. And to close out the interview, Bob and Tina, Tina, kick it off. What are your plans? What do you have up aside from Ghost Bait? Any other projects are in the works?
Well, yeah. I'm a singer as well, and I write music. And my fiance and I we're working on music, but we do. We have like a YouTube channel that's a little bit different than the paranormal, but we're on YouTube, The Adventures of John and Dean, and we do movie reviews and trailer reactions, and we go live, talk about like Hollywood news and stuff like that. So if anyone's interested, they can find that on my Instagram, Tina Thor, and you can find John and I. We like to do sketch comedy, and we just like to make people happy, and that's why I love Ghost Bait, is to help people. And my fiance and I, we love to just spread that love as well.
And I can honestly say that that John and Dean it's highly entertaining, and I definitely recommend it. Not just because I love Tina, but because those guys are really good at what they do. For me personally, aside from Ghost Bait, as I mentioned earlier, I do work in TV and film. I have a feature that I wrote that's going to be starting production this calendar year. And aside from that, really the easiest way to just kind of see what's going on with both of us is social media. My handles are all Bob, it's my middle name, Bo McGill, so Bob Bo McGill, at all the usual places. I'm working really hard to be more up to date with all of that now with the show coming out. So for those of you who have looked, I promise there will be more.
Right. Yeah. Because as content creators, there's that divide. You have to focus on the content, but at the same time, you have to focus on the social media to engage with the audience, because that in itself takes half a day almost.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much, Bob and Tina. And once again, congratulations on this show. I'm definitely tuning in to watch Ghost Bait. And I'm sure it would gain a large following considering the success of the web series.
Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate your support. And and taking the time to chat with us. And definitely excited for you to watch it. And maybe at some point we can circle back around after you've seen some of the new episodes and do this again.
Oh, absolutely. Looking forward to that, because I know we're pressed for time. I have so much questions with the paranormal and psychology, because it's yeah, I look forward to that. So thank you so much, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it again for sure. We appreciate your time very, very much.
Segment 3 Trailer First Impressions. I'll take your dead.
I'm looking for the butcher. Got some trash. Need taken care of.
That's what people do. They dump dead bodies in my door.
Sometimes it's hard to tell who's alive and who's dead. I think most people are scared of the dead. Not me. I see dead people all the time.
Kicking off our trailer first impressions is the trailer for the film I'll Take Your Dead. It is a 1 hour 23-minute horror film written by Charles Archibald and Jamie LaForest, directed by Charles Archibald. Jumping onto IMDb, the synopsis is practically one page off of a novel here. I'm going to read an excerpt off of the synopsis. I'll Take Your Dead revolves on the following. It follows William, who has a simple job. He makes dead bodies disappear. This isn't something he likes or even wants to do, but through circumstance out of his control, his little farmhouse in the country has become a dumping ground for the casualties of the gang-related murders in the nearby city. His daughter Gloria has become used to rough-looking men dropping off corpses and is even convinced that some of them are haunting their house. Based on the trailer, it delves first. It goes into a psychological thriller, a crime drama, let's say. And as the trailer winds down, we find a supernatural element involved with, as the plot has mentioned, the young daughter Gloria seeing apparitions in her home. So which path does this film go? You have to wait and see the film. I myself am curious to see how they interweave the supernatural with this crime drama and this whole conflict with this woman tied to the bed who was dumped at his place to get rid of her for some strange reason. We are unsure. Kyle, what is your opinion on the trailer?
So my first thoughts were that it was very reminiscent of Misery a little bit, with the whole girl being held against her will. I'm sure you can tell what I mean, because the writer that was being held against himself or against his own will in Misery, basically the same scenario. He was tied down, couldn't leave. It also reminds me of a mix of Misery as well as The Sixth Sense. She's seeing dead people, but it also is she seeing this hostage or this woman who's tied to the bed as a dead person, or like you can see the father speaking to her as well. So is he now seeing dead people, or is this just like, this girl's alive, something happened? Is she actually good? Is she bad? Did she do something to deserve to almost be killed? Like there's so many questions coming up just with this trailer alone, and it has completely piqued my interest.
Right, and this is how a trailer should be composed. A lot of questions left unanswered. We don't know nothing what's going on. We don't know if this is a supernatural thriller, a psychological thriller, a mixture of both. It sparked my attention. I want to know what's going on between the father, his relationship with the daughter. A lot of interweaving storylines here, and I'm not surprised. Chad Archibald, he's got a good track record of creating character-driven narratives in horror cinema. For example, he was a producer on Bite, The Heretics, so he knows how to interweave a good storyline. I'm looking forward to watching this film. Let's say the acting was good. I enjoyed the cinematography. I don't see any pitfalls or cons here. Just gotta check out the film in its entirety, and I can't wait for the final act to see how everything interweaves into that final scene.
Godzilla, King of the Monsters.
Hello? Is anyone there? I'm trying to reach.
The cryptozoological agency Monarch faces off against a battery of god-sized monsters, including the mighty Godzilla, who collides with Mothra, Rodan, and his ultimate nemesis, the three-headed King Ghidorah. Now, Godzilla King of Monsters is written or co-written and directed by Michael Dougherty. You may know him from Trick or Treat, Krampus. He was also the writer for a few superhero movies, including Superman Returns and X-Men 2. It's also co-written by Zach Shields, who he's pretty much been producing a few movies here and there, including The Conjuring and Krampus as well. Now, as for the players in this film, you're looking at Millie Bobby Brown, who is from Stranger Things, Vera Farmiga, who is in the aforementioned Conjuring series, as well as Kyle Chandler and I believe CCH Pounder as well, who was, I believe she was on The Shield, and there's a few other shows she was on as well, but she's an excellent actress. My thoughts on this is essentially essentially Godzilla is being put on display as like a powerful being. He's taking on these three godlike creatures, basically like a 3-on-1 fight. I think what they're doing is that they're trying to portray the character as like much stronger than any other mythical creature out there or made-up creature out there, in order to be able to combat King Kong once that movie comes out. So it's kind of like a pissing contest, if you will. And if you recall from the King Kong film, he had, or they had mentioned like, oh well, he's still in his infancy, so he's still got lots to grow. So this is kind of their answer to that. Like, well, Godzilla's super strong. So for the most part, I feel like this is what the film is about. But I also feel like with the actors involved, with the sound design, with the director, writer, everything all combined, it's going to be a fantastic film to see in the theaters. It's going to be like a massive overachieving experience sitting in theaters watching this with the sound system in the dark room with the 3D glasses on. It should be something like mesmerizing, to be completely honest.
Right. And even if it's not 3D, I think this would be great for IMAX, or if you have 4D, I think it's 4DX in your neighborhood cinemas. And what that is 4DX utilizes sight, sounds, and feel. So if there's a rain sequence in the film, the seat gushes out spurts of water. If there's a windy scene, the seat sprays the occupant with this mist of cold wind. It's a unique cinematic experience. I don't think it will take off as much, but this Godzilla, I agree, you have to watch it in the cinemas to get that full blast. And watching the trailer, Kyle, I enjoyed the visuals, the cinema, the CGI, but it looks so much as the recent Godzilla film, that dark tone. Usually all the sequences are low lit instead of a bright sunny day, almost apocalyptic in a way.
And I think that's exactly what they're aiming for, because it's like hell on earth almost. It's like these gods are rising from the ground or from the water, from wherever they're coming from. So everything's changing. But also the reason for it is definitely has to do with the amount of CG that they use. So with a darker setting or like a darker lighting, they can get away with a lot more to make it look a lot more realistic. So I'm happy that they've made that choice. It'll give us more of a feel of reality to it, if you will.
Right. Yeah, I didn't see it that way. Keeping it dark so we don't see any flaws. Because hey, Godzilla has changed so much. I think the worst incantation of Godzilla was a giant iguana appearance. The one a few years back, that Godzilla was a girl, I think it was, protecting its eggs. Like, what? It looked like an iguana. Good in a way, but yeah, it didn't appeal too much as the icon Godzilla.
No, it was still cool to see like a new iteration of Godzilla back then, but you still can't beat the classics. You got the dude in the rubber suit, you got your puppeteers, whatever you need to do, right? Just have a guy in a rubber suit running across the city, you're set. But this day and age, people don't buy that as much, so you kind of have to put in a few more dollars in order to be able to make it a little realistic. Right, exactly. And hey, it has all the iconic creatures from, if you're familiar with Godzilla, the from the Asian market, the three-headed dragon, Mothra. Yeah, it's a good setup here, making Godzilla seem like, let's say, how can I compare him to the Ultimate Warrior? And King Kong is Hulk Hogan. So we all know how that match went down in the WWE. So yeah, my money is on the Ultimate Warrior here, which is Godzilla. Well, firepower likely will beat just pure muscle, but we'll have to see how big King Kong grows in order to be, to make a fair judgment, to throw our money down. I can't believe they went this route. It's a long overdue film to be created. And I think the last film, King Kong versus Godzilla, I don't know who won. I think it was a stalemate. I'm not sure. But hopefully we'll have a victor here. I'm hoping so too, but I feel like they're going to cheap out and they're going to end up going with like a tag team thing. Right. And they'll have to combine forces to fight another creature. Yeah, I think that's the route they will go. Yeah. Yeah, they'll be pulling out the Mecha Godzilla or some nonsense. Now that you bring it up, Netflix has an animated film. Well, it's a series from Godzilla, and the whole storyline for Godzilla is completely different from anything we have seen before. And here, Godzilla, in the animated films, Godzilla is completely, totally evil. And in the film, the one releasing here, King of Monsters, it's funny how they have him as the savior, as this sort of like Pacific Rim. I don't think they are making a cameo here, so they gotta have to rely on a kaiju to kick ass. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing it. Again, it's more so because I want to see the inevitable matchup of Kong and Godzilla, but I'll take what I can get for the time being. Right, and not for nothing, I'm glad that they changed Godzilla. He looks different in this film. His arms, did you catch it when he was running across the field to fight the dragon? Did you see his arms are a bit longer? Oh no, I did not catch that. I'll have to take a look at it again. Godzilla he adapts that T-Rex short arms, but he was sprinting across the field, I was like, wait a second, his arms are kind of longer here. So is that a little extra advantage they put against King Kong? Maybe he could throw some jabs and punches. I'd definitely love to see that. That would be hilarious. Hey, they're gonna do something funny. They have to. In order to get a wider demographic, they're gonna do some humor. Oh, absolutely, they will.
Annabelle comes home.
Everything you see in here is either haunted, cursed, or has been used in some kind of ritualistic practice. Nothing's a toy. It's safer for these things to be in here than out there. Sometimes it's better to keep the genie in the bottle.
Don't your parents keep any creepy stuff around?
We keep it all locked away in a room so that we're safe. It's not really good for anyone to go in there.
closing out our third segment, trailer first impressions, is Annabelle Comes Home, the trailer for this film. This is a horror mystery thriller, according to IMDb. It would be releasing on the 28th of June 2019. Annabelle Comes Home is directed by Gary Dauberman. He serves as co-writer based on a story by James Wan. According to IMDb, this is the synopsis. Third film in the Annabelle franchise. Period, point blank. In comparison to the previous trailer that I covered, I'll Take Your Dead, which was half a page of a novel, this synopsis is not even a sentence. Okay, what can we say about Annabelle? Well, of course, we all know that there is purportedly a real doll named Annabelle. Ed and Lorraine Warren have this item in their museum. This is part of the research that they have done, collecting haunted or supernaturally charged items. They keep it safe in their museum. How does this film play in with the franchise? I have no idea. Annabelle, the first one, was a bit of a disappointment. The sequel, I have to admit, it felt much better than the first. I didn't favor it as much, but I could tell that there was more attention to the cinematography and the story as opposed to the first. This one, I don't know. I really can't say. It's ever since that film. Well, one thing, ever since that film from the Wayans brothers, that's haunted house, I think it's called, that Annabelle was the jealous lover, I just can't see Annabelle the same way again. It just took away all the fright factor from this particular item. Kyle, what do you think about this trailer?
Well, to preface this, I've not been a fan of Annabelle to begin with. Like I stated earlier, and agreeing with what you're saying as well, the first film was crap. The second one was a little bit better, not great by any means. But there's something about this doll that's not moving, not doing anything. Like we were talking about Chucky earlier. He moves around, he kills people, you see him do it.
Right.
Annabelle just sits around. The thing that I liked about this trailer in comparison to the other films is that they're stating that she's a beacon for other spirits. So to me, this says that it basically will lead to more action scenes. Like you're going to be able to see the ghosts that are probably manipulating her or moving her around. Also explaining that's how she gets around is from these spirits moving her. Like next to that, my biggest thing was that this teenage girl, not minding her own business, of course, she fucks with the occult. She better be getting what's coming to her. Exactly. Like, it must be just me getting old. I don't know, but nosy teenagers just need to learn their lesson.
Precisely. Hey, that makes for good horror cinema. We wouldn't have a storyline if some curious person that just does something they're not supposed to, whether it's the Ouija board or opens the cabinet for Annabelle. We don't. Hey, we say it's so cliche, but we expect this to happen.
It's true. We really do. And like going back to this whole beacon or for other spirits thing, I think it will actually help with the tension, because once you make it to the end of the trailer, you kind of like see the doll laying on the girl under the blankets, and it keeps getting closer and closer, and then suddenly the ghost or spirit or the undead, whatever you want to call it, just kind of pops up. So I'm thinking that they're going to take advantage of this and kind of make it a little bit scarier, a lot more jump scares more than likely, maybe some good like effects of what they look like after when they died, if some of them had their throats cut or whatever, depending on how they died, right? But I think this is a good opportunity for them to actually make Annabelle somewhat scary, not her, the doll itself, but just like the film itself. They definitely have the potential to make this one better than the other ones.
Good that you brought up that particular scene in the trailer. I found that to be a direct, I don't know if it was paying homage or it was a direct ripoff of the Grudge, not the American version, the Asian version of the Grudge, part 1. One of the characters, she's in bed, she's lying in bed, and it's the exact same sequence of events. She's under the bed, she pulls the sheets, she looks under, and there you have the creature, that we all are aware of, the long black hair, ghost looking thing in under the sheets with her. I say, wait a second, come on, I felt like I was watching that film here. I hope the rest of the film doesn't adapt that model, taking bits and pieces of other films and passing it on here.
No, it definitely has to be an inspiration of some sort, because especially with James Wan involved, I highly doubt he'd let any of that go on, like other than like a quick inspiration or a nod to something else. But I didn't catch that. I'm happy that you brought that up.
Even if Annabelle is not a successful part of the Conjuring franchise, it's safe to say, from my opinion, this also falls into the psychological thriller. I don't find this to be a horror film per se. Even IMDb puts mystery thriller in the description for this film.
They're just trying to get an Academy Award recognition. That's it.
Maybe, you never know. I highly doubt that would be the case. I think Netflix would beat them to the punch. But yeah, it's always that storyline around the antagonist. What really? Now I'm curious. What the hell charges Annabelle? Was that explored in the sequel? Because I just totally overlooked it.
As far as I know, in the sequel, and I've only watched it once, so please excuse me if I'm wrong, whoever's listening. I'm pretty sure it was the deceased daughter. Her spirit went into the doll, and I guess she was upset because the parents brought in other kids to live there or something. I'm not exactly sure, but other than that, there was not really any other explanation. So hopefully this time it's able to kind of tell us what's going on, delve deeper into the reasons as to why this doll got possessed, or in connection with the prequel / sequel film that they had. So hopefully we get some answers, or at least some scares.
Right. And it's an interesting point here that this doll is purportedly charging other supernatural elements around it. In the real Annabelle doll that is in the real museum at Ed and Warren's museum, that is the idea, not the idea, that's the thinking around this doll. That's what they have it in isolation, is that it in fact charges other items or other supernatural things around it. And even if a slight touch, or if you mock it, it just brings a bad omen your way. The whole real storyline behind the Annabelle doll is intriguing in itself.
No, it really is. I actually watched a live event. I believe it was 2 years back or something of that nature, and they were moving the doll because I believe they had to move it either out of the museum because they were moving the museum to another location or something like that. But they had this whole explanation, like, okay, well, we had to get like 2 priests to bless this thing, and then we had to hold it a certain way with these special gloves. Like, there's just this whole, like, the whole kit and caboodle, if you will, in order to move this doll. And it was fascinating to see that they were taking it this seriously. Like, to a degree, I believe in stuff of this nature, but going as far as they did in order just to move it from one location to another, I felt was a bit much.
Right, and that blurs the line of entertainment, or is this thing really that dangerous? Because I've seen many focus on this real Annabelle doll, heard stories about it. It was even featured on Ghost Adventures. Zach Bagans, how he becomes over dramatic during his episodes
yes.
for the TV series. I was like, wait a second, dude, come on, dude, take it down a notch. But in any event, We don't know. I'm so curious of the supernatural that I'm saying to myself, how much of this is really real? Like, for my curiosity, I want to visit the Zach Bagans Museum in Las Vegas to see all those haunted trinkets and see if it's in fact supernaturally charged.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those places that any fan of either the genre or supernatural stuff definitely want to take a look at, just to see for themselves if there's anything to the myths or the stories or the legends, however we want to put them. They want to see it for themselves.
Right. And anyone listening, don't follow the films to get a gist of what Annabelle is. Do your research. You have Google, search, read about it. In fact, read about the history of Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think they were the pioneers of paranormal investigation as we know it now. Thank you once again for tuning in to DK Mag Horror Entertainment News Podcast. This is Season 9, Episode 13. The last episode for Season 9. We'll come back with Season 10, the whole slate of 13 more episodes. My name is Ken Artuz, founder for DK Mag. You can find us across all social media platforms on DK Mag. The website DecayMag.com. We're not DK Magazine or DK Mag. Thank you once again, Kyle, for joining me as co-host, weighing your opinion on the whole variety of topics.
Well, as I said last week, I'm definitely happy to be here, and anytime you need me, you know that I will show up and try to keep people entertained.
Yeah, I have the bat phone right next to me. All I got to do is press the button. Kyle, come on over. Sure, and you can do the podcast.
Exactly.
Out of the slate of topics here, what really resonated with you? Let's start off with segment 1. We had 3 topics here. What was the one that really stood out?
Well, the one I found really stood out, same thing as that's going to end up being the one that stood out in the third segment, was our Conjuring talk. Just there's so much to it. Like we said, there's the spin-off films and everything. There's so much to delve into in there that we kind of went a little long with it as well. But there's so much to cover that you can't help it.
Right, and yeah, I agree. Segment 1, segment 3, same thing. The Conjuring universe, and it begs the question: how much is too much? We have so much content here, but at the same time, it's generating ticket sales. People are going to the cinemas to watch this. I guess it's that hunger for horror content, and I think The Conjuring is the longest standing franchise that is really dishing it out. I don't think Insidious and or Sinister, which we had mentioned, has offered so much content as the Conjuring universe.
No, they definitely haven't. I believe Sinister stopped after 2. There may have been a third, but I'm pretty sure it was just 2. Insidious, there are 4 films there, but they never branched off into anything else, although they could have. But the Conjuring definitely has a lot going for it right now. They're basically the Marvel universe of a horror franchise for the time being. So we'll have to wait and see if the new adaptations are gonna be any good. I've got some hope for the upcoming Annabelle film, but Conjuring 3, like I mentioned earlier, it needs to be the plot. We need to find out what the plot is before I'm going to show any interest in it.
Right, and I'm sure trailers and still images are going to be released in the 4th quarter of this year, given that it's going to release 2020 so far, September 11th. Hopefully that would be the case and it won't get moved around. That tends to happen sometimes. Segment 2, I think the topic for me here is, I would say I'm torn between Creepshow and Swamp Thing. I think I'll weigh in on Creepshow, being that I'm familiar with the films, I enjoy the films, and now that there's a recent resurgence of nostalgic anthology horror film, with the exception of Tales from the Dark Side. When are they going to bring that one back?
I've been looking into that as well, trying to figure it out. I don't think anybody's got or has shown interest in it as of yet. But if Creepshow takes off, I'm sure somebody's going to try to pick up the rights to it and go flying from there.
Right. The situation with Tales from the Crypt, I'm uncertain what the situation is with that. I knew there was some legal battle over the Crypt Keeper, and you can't have Tales from the Crypt without the Crypt Keeper. It's a good thing that Creepshow is getting developed now, and there doesn't seem to be any red tape behind it. And there are so many other anthology series that should be reinvented. The Outer Limits, Tales from the Dark Side was one of my personal favorites. Twilight Zone just came back. Hey, it's a good time for horror content for TV and streaming.
No, exactly, and like we spoke about earlier as well, like the anthology format, it's incredibly popular now, especially like since what do you call it? One that every season's different.
American Horror Story.
Horror Story. Yes, yes, yeah. So ever since that, it seems to have pushed the anthology take a little bit further and a little bit further. But now we're seeing it everywhere. So you know what? I'm perfectly fine with it. I don't mind having a story a week to watch, something of that nature. A full season of something, when having it changed over to another thing with the same characters, is a little odd to me, but it's a concept that's worked for American Horror Story, so I can't really argue with it. But I'm happy to be able to now say that there are weekly shows that are different each and every week, and you can just sit there and enjoy it like a mini film, a short, if you will.
Right, and I think it's the same thing like the candy bars. They're bite-sized, and you don't feel as guilty. I think it falls on the same concept as these. Hey, you watch one short, hey, okay, you don't feel as bad. And it all revolves on the short attention span. It follows that model. People want shorter content, faster content. If they watch one series of whatever the case may be, Creepshow, whatever, they're satisfied, and they don't have to tune in season 2 to figure out who shot JR or something like that. That's what made American Horror Story so popular.
Exactly. So, like I said, keep it up. I know there's some other shows that are in the works at the moment that are looking to do the same aspect. So, you know, if that's what's popular, bring it on. I'm happy with that, because I can I can put it on any streaming service at this point. Turn on one of the shows that are doing the anthologies and just watch. I don't have to worry about it. Somebody could have been watching it, you know, an hour before me. Doesn't matter. This episode's completely different. I'm not even going to realize that it's something different, that, you know, I missed 2 episodes.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you so much once again, Kyle. And next episode would be season 10, episode 1, which would be next week. Never a dull moment here at the office. As soon as we finish one season, we're jumping on into the next one.
No off season here, right?
No, I wish.